These are 8 players that you must start in fantasy football this week. If you do have a start sit question, make sure to leave it down below in the comment section as I respond to every single one. Starting at number 8 with Brian Robinson Jr., it's clear, it's evident that this backfield in Washington belongs to B-Rob, as he saw 15 of 17 running back opportunities in week 1 before the fourth quarter, finished with 89 total yards, a touchdown, along with 3 receptions. Yes, Jaden Daniels vultured 2 rushing opportunities when they got in close. We don't love that, but Robinson is still going to get a lot of opportunities in the run game. They really like him in the pass game as well. I think this Commanders offense is going to come into its own as the season goes on. And Robinson is just going to be a big part of it, as they don't have a ton of weapons on offense. They don't really use Terry McLaurin for some reason. Yes, Austin Eckler is there, but this offense is going to go through Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson. And B-Rob could feast in week 2 against the New York Giants defense that gave up the 4th most rushing yards in the league last season, and allowed old man Aaron Jones to run wild in week 1, so make sure Robinson is in your lineup. At number 7, Kyle Pitts was the only positive in Atlanta's passing game in week 1, as they were held to 155 yards through the air. It's not great. It's kind of embarrassing. Kirk Cousins looked horrible. He looked rusty. He didn't look confident planting on his back leg, which was the leg that he ruptured his Achilles, so that's understandable. I do think that changes. I do think Cousins will improve. I don't think he's just cooked at this point. We like that Kyle Pitts got in the end zone. Yes, he was only on 3 targets, but Drake London also only saw 3 targets. There wasn't a ton of volume overall in this passing attack, so we can't just be like, oh, Pitts only saw 3 targets. Like, he's not worth starting. He's absolutely worth starting. He was a top 5 tight end in week 1, which doesn't say much because I know the tight end position was really bad to start off the year, but Kyle Pitts was on the field all the time, 100% of the routes. Like I said, he scored a touchdown, something that he's been allergic to so far in his NFL career. But these are all positives with Arthur Smith gone. We know this new coaching staff is going to use Pitts. They're not going to take him off the field for Jonnu Smith, so he's a really talented guy that is what I believe is still going to be a good offense in Atlanta, and he's not leaving the field. So this is a guy that you start with confidence. And I just have faith in Cousins, in this overall uber talented offense to get going. And they're likely going to be chasing points this week in a favorable matchup against the Eagles that have allowed the 7th most passing yards and the lowest pressure rate in week 1. I think Pitts will be a big part of this offense. They're going to have to put up a lot of points to keep up with the Eagles. Make sure Kyle Pitts is locked and loaded in your tight end spot. At number 6, Rasheed Shaheed, I think, is on his way to a massive breakout campaign. I'm kind of kicking myself for not talking about him more this offseason as a big-time sleeper, and he got hot right out of the gate in week 1. Wide receiver 15 in fantasy points, finishing with 3 catches, 73 yards, and that long touchdown. And he led the Saints with a 20% target share, 42% of the air yard share, and a whopping 4.29 yards per route run, and was second on the team in route participation with 73%, only behind Chris Olave. It's clear he's the Saints' deep ball threat, and with the Saints' newfound love for motion under new offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, which will allow Shaheed to get free releases, resulting in big explosive plays, which we didn't see a lot of last year as the Saints had this boring, slow, behind the times offense where they didn't run a lot of pre-snap motion, play action. That just won't be the case this year. So Shaheed, really talented player in an offense that's going to be a lot more creative to get their playmakers the football. And I just think Shaheed is going to be a big beneficiary of this new scheme, of this new system. And while this isn't a mouth-watering matchup against the stingy Dallas secondary, I do think that Shaheed is going to have a lot of success out of the slot against a beatable corner in Jordan Lewis. So get Shaheed in your lineup. He's a very strong flex, and it would not shock me at all if he scores another long touchdown in week 2. At number 5, Niji Harris, who had a strong week 1 where he saw 21 touches. He seems like he's the guy in the Steelers backfield, at least for now, with Jaylen Warren still recovering from that hamstring injury. And it just seems like Najee has a little more juice this year. I don't know if it's because it's week 1. He just seems a little more explosive than in years past, as he ranked 16th in explosive run rate, 12th in missed tackles forced per attempt. We know Denver is not a good run defense, as they allowed the most fantasy points per game to the position last year. They're very beatable on the ground, and they're on their way to being much of the same this year, as they already surrendered 31 fantasy points to the Seattle Seahawks, to Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet in week 1. So get Najee in your lineup. I think the Steelers are going to lean on their run game, and Harris, I think, is going to have a blow-up performance. At number 4, Xavier Worthy, who had just about as good of an NFL debut as you possibly could have. 2 touchdowns, 20.8 fantasy points, and he was thrown into an immediate full-time role, which is really notable because we know Kansas City is typically really slow with their rookie wide receivers, but that wasn't the case with Worthy, as he ran 77% of routes and figures to be a massive part of this offense going forward, especially with Hollywood Brown looking like he's now going to miss most of the season. And I think Xavier is in another prime spot against a Cincinnati secondary that's very burnable. Maybe this game is high scoring. Maybe the Bengals finally get it going with Burrow and Chase. And if so, if there's a lot of points scored, don't be shocked if Worthy has another long touchdown. At number 3, Tank Dell. Yes, he was on one of my start videos earlier in the week, but I think it's very important that we put him on this one again, because I do think a lot of people are discouraged from his week 1 performance. Maybe they think the Bears secondary is stingier than what they really are. I'm here to tell you that Tank Dell is going to win you your fantasy matchup in week 2. Yes, if you look at the stat sheet, it doesn't blow you away. It's like, well, he didn't score a touchdown. He didn't really do much. But if you zoom in, Dell ran 33 of 38 CJ Stroud dropbacks. So he was on the field a ton when they were throwing the football, leaving the field when they were running, which we don't mind at all. He had a 22% target share, which was second only behind Nico Collins, along with 45% of Houston's air yards, an ADOT of 16.6 yards. The big splash plays, the long touchdowns are coming. He probably should have had a score in week 1, but the defense made a nice play. I do think Tank Dell gets in the end zone on Sunday night. I think he has a really big performance. You want these guys on good offenses attached to CJ Stroud that are used in these high-value situations. His ADOT is 16.6 yards, so they're going to use him downfield. I think Houston throws a ton in this one. Yes, the Bears secondary is a little bit more difficult, but when you have Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell on the roster, one guy is always going to be open, and I think Dell is going to see a lot of easy coverages on Sunday night. Bold prediction, over 100 yards, 5 catches, and a score. At number 2, J.K. Dobbin shocked the entire NFL in week 1 and reminded us all of how good of a running back he still is. Even though he's only a year removed from that torn Achilles, it did not matter, as he ranked 5th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 7th in yards after contact per attempt. As he turned 10 carries into 135 yards and a score, I think much of the same continues in week 2 against a Carolina defense that is just horrible. This whole Carolina Panthers team is a disaster, and the Panthers gave up 180 rushing yards in week 1. So if you got Dobbins off the waiver wire or you drafted him, he is a lock to be in your starting lineup. At number 1, Jordan Mason. This one seems obvious, right? Now with CMC headed to IR, he's going to miss the next 4 games. Mason is a smash start again this week after he steamrolled that Jets defense for 152 total yards and a score. He was the RB5 on the week with 22.2 fantasy points. He's a really good running back, you guys. 10th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 11th in yards after contact per attempt. He saw that workhorse role that we're used to CMC getting, 81% of the snaps. If you drafted Mason or were aggressive getting him off the waiver wire, maybe you spent all your fab on getting him, nice work. It's going to pay off. CMC might not play until week 12 plus at this rate. Who really knows? I think Jordan is already looking like a league winner. He's a locked-in RB2 with RB1 upside for the rest of the year until CMC returns. And even though it appears to be a tough matchup against Minnesota, the Vikings didn't really have to do much to stop that poor Giants offense, along with Devin Singletary. They are going to be tested this week against a really good 49ers offense. Mason is a strong play just based on volume alone. He's a talented back. He's going to get a ton of the opportunities, literally no matter what. He's a must-start player. Cram him in your lineup. Do whatever it takes. He's set for another big game. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything from the video, if you could please subscribe to the channel, like the video. It helps me out a ton. And if you do have a start sit question, leave it down below in the comment section. I respond to every single one. I'm more than happy to help. That is all, and I will see you in the next one.